We got a Wednesday edition of Locked On Lions, everybody. A little injury update. What did Bill Belichick have to say about the Lions? And Dave Birkett from the Free Press.
You are Locked On Lions, your daily Detroit Lions podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Matt Dery with you. It is another edition of Locked On Lions right here on the Locked On Podcast Network on a Wednesday, October 5th and a Thursday, October 6th. Our good friend Dave Birkett from the Free Press, longtime Lions beat writer, is going to join me momentarily. We'll talk to Dave about what to do about this defense, how he looks at this game against the Patriots on Sunday, and certainly talking well and positively about the offense. We'll do that coming up momentarily on the show. We appreciate you making us your first listen each and every day. Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. You can follow me on Twitter at Dery Speaks, Dery Speaks, at Locked On Lions on Twitter. We post the podcast every day on the Matt Dery Facebook fan page, and as well, you can check us out on YouTube, the Locked On Lions YouTube channel. We've blown up the last couple of weeks, over 2,000 subscribers. We appreciate that. And those of you commenting as well, we appreciate your comments too. Again, shout out to Turner Batdorf for the fantastic 222 Rodwood Drive sign that he sent me. We appreciate Turner. We appreciate all of you for listening. And again, making us your first listen each and every day. All right, so Lions got back to work today in Allen Park at the aforementioned 222, and a lot of guys out. And it was really more of a walkthrough than anything else for the offense especially. But as far as the players that were not at practice today, you're talking DeAndre Swift, Amon-Ra St. Brown, DJ Chark, TJ Hawkinson, Josh Reynolds, Quintez Cephas, Evan Brown, Frank Ragnow, Chris Board, and John Kaminsky. The offense, Dan Campbell said today, was going to be a light workout, and that's exactly what it was. Back at practice today, and this is a good sign, was left guard Jonah Jackson, who's missed the last couple of games with that finger injury, and also kicker Austin Seibert. We told you yesterday that the Lions were working out a bunch of kickers. Well, they've signed one just in case to the practice squad. Yes, the Money Badger, Michael Badgley, ex of the Chargers, Colts last year, and the Bears last week, where he hit 4 field goals. The Money Badger is in town. So if Austin Seibert can't go Sunday at Foxborough against Matt Patricia, Jelani Tavai, and the Patriots, then Michael Badgley will be your kicker for this week. But Dan Campbell is optimistic that despite a little bit of a tender groin, Austin Seibert can come back and be the kicker this week. So we'll see. I'm assuming DeAndre Swift is not going to go this week. You got to be hopeful, and we'll see tomorrow and Friday if Amon-Ra St. Brown can practice. Tom Kennedy now has been elevated to the regular roster. He's off the practice squad and has been elevated to the 53-man roster, so that's a good sign. For Kennedy, who's played well, but with Cephas banged up, I don't think he's going to play this week. And you never know with Chark. Reynolds, all these guys, Tom Kennedy now has been elevated after the team said goodbye to Dom the kicker, Eberle, who was cut yesterday. All right, real fast before we talk to Dave Birkett, Bill Belichick spoke today. It sounds like Mac Jones may try to play on Sunday. If not, Bailey Zappi, the 4th-round pick, will go because Brian Hoyer is likely going to be out. But Belichick today got on his on the podium at his press conference. And look, anytime the GOAT, Bill Belichick, gets up and talks, you listen. And he spoke today and immediately lauded the Lions' special teams. He was going on and on about Jack Fox. Best punter in the league. He also can throw, so we got to watch out for fake punts. He said Chris Board is the best special teams player they'll face all year. He was very complimentary of the Lions' special teams. Very. And then he went into the running game a little bit and talked about how well Goff is playing. And he highlighted Charles Harris, Aiden Hutchinson, and Alex Anzalone as defensive players that he thought were playing well for the Lions. So that was Bill Belichick's take on this situation for Sunday. Certainly they've had their share of injuries. Why, if Lawrence Guy doesn't play for the Patriots, that's a big run stuffer for them. And we're going to talk to Mike Debate tomorrow, the host of the Locked On Patriots podcast for the crossover. But if Guy is out, teams have been able to run on New England. So the Lions, of course, have been able to run on everybody. So we'll see how that works out coming up this weekend. All right, we want to tell you about our friends. We mentioned this before at LinkedIn Jobs. And hey, you love LinkedIn Jobs. They are fantastic. And the great thing about LinkedIn Jobs is every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business, right? Well, you want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. No better place to go than LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people to help your team faster and free, all right? Post your job on LinkedIn Jobs. It's awesome. Add your job and the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. LinkedIn's the place to go if you're looking for people. All right. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. And I've posted jobs on LinkedIn and at LinkedIn Jobs, and they do all that stuff for you, the screening questions. So it makes it easy. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free. Doesn't cost anything at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Always a pleasure to be joined by Dave Birkett from the Free Press, Freep.com, longtime Lions beat writer. What's up, Dave?
Doing good, Matt. How are you?
Good, buddy. How many years is this for you now? I had Kyle on a couple weeks ago, and he said 10. 10 for Mikey, but he said you're the elder statesman now.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm probably 2010 was my first year at the Freep. So what's that? 12 seasons?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's a lot of them.
I mean, no one's
They
no
don't want
one's
me out yet.
yeah, no one's Mike O'Hara though. So
No. Don't let me get to that stage. All right.
Oh my gosh, you're
hang them up before then.
That's right. You're too busy for that. But all right, so here we sit at 1-3. You know, the old days of Jim Caldwell, the quarters of the season, but first quarter in, and obviously everybody's asking you about the defense. But what are you thinking right now?
Well, I mean, look, 1-3 is disappointing, especially when you go back to whatever midway through the fourth quarter of that Vikings game, and you sort of looked at the schedule and you thought maybe 4-1 was within their reach. So the record's disappointing, but I think they've done some good things. They're an entertaining team. I mean, the offense is really good, and I think it has a chance to be one of the better ones in Lions history. I do think most of what they've done is sustainable. Maybe not 35 points a game, but sustainable. And if they can just get that defense fixed a little bit. I think it's important for them not to waste what could be a sort of historic offense. So if they can get that defense fixed a little bit, maybe they do end up getting back into the playoff race.
We're recording here on Wednesday morning, but Dan Campbell made a point of saying, and even did that on the ticket the other day. Personnel changes. What can those be? It's not like. Malcolm Rodriguez beats out all these linebackers, so now you're going to put one of these other guys in there. I mean, what do you see as what he's talking about there?
Yeah, I don't know. He talked about that and simplifying the defense a little bit, and when you're sitting in early October, I don't know that there's a whole lot of fixes that you have on your roster. I mean, the Lions could switch things up at the nickel cornerback position if they wanted to. Mike Hughes I don't think he's had a great first quarter of the season here. The one thing Dan mentioned the other day was Aiden Hutchinson. Maybe there's a way to look, he plays outside plenty, but he also moves inside in some of those sub packages, and maybe there's a way to keep him outside so he can avoid some of the double teams that have limited his effectiveness in getting to the quarterback. I know Dan mentioned using Demetrius Taylor, the undrafted rookie, a little bit this week finally. I don't know that that's going to ultimately save your defense, but there probably are some little fixes that maybe add a little more edge to the defense, a little more pass rush, a little more Just that sense that they can get something done on that side of the ball. Maybe that's what the defense needs at this point in time.
Dave Birkett with me from the Free Press. Does a great job, of course, covering the Lions. Has done this for years. You wrote in your piece this morning about the blitzing and the over blitzing and maybe cutting some of that out. How much is it just maybe saying, all right, we can't do this anymore, and Aaron Glenn has to kind of flip that switch off.
Yeah, or maybe maybe be a little more judicious about when he does it. I mean, I like the aggressive mindset. I like it when Dan Campbell is going forward on 4th and short. I like it when Aaron Glenn is trying to make something happen. So you don't want to lose that. And as Aaron said a couple weeks ago, that's who he is. But looking at the numbers, the Lions I think they rank 3rd in the NFL in blitz rate. They're blitzing about 40% of the time, and that doesn't necessarily mean sending the house like they did a couple times against the Seahawks, but when they did that, 2 times in particular, they got bit. I mean, they got bit with 2 long runs, and then there was another 2nd and 10 pass when it was basically a zero blitz situation where they gave up one of their long gains. And you go back and look at that loss to the Seahawks. I mean, about half of Seattle's yards came on plays over 20 yards, and maybe that's always the case, but the Seahawks had so many of them. They had 8 of them. That's a killer for a defense when that happens. So I think one thing Dan said the other day is this is on film now, right? No team had hit the Lions with the run against the blitz like Seattle did, and now that it's there, other teams will try to do it, and so the Lions have to be more aware of it and maybe show that look, but ultimately not be in that zero situation until they catch some teams trying to do that again and stop them.
Orlovsky put out on Twitter yesterday about that video, 2nd and 14, and Okuda's playing press coverage, and the safety's very late in getting over, and it was just almost like an easy pitch and catch. And then a couple of times during the game, I'm sitting there watching like, all right, it's 3rd and 4. Why is Oruwariye 15 yards off the line of scrimmage? It's just basics sometimes, Dave, and you scratch your head like, if you're Gino, of course, you're just going to check off and tell Tyler Lockett to run 5 yards and turn around, and it's a first down. That's basic stuff right there.
Yeah, and one of Dan's points was, this is a team that struggled against the quarterback run early in that game, and obviously a couple weeks ago against the Eagles, and a 2nd and 14. Maybe it's unnecessary to again be playing single high, press man coverage at the line of scrimmage when you're putting some of your defensive backs in a lose situation there when you're having trouble getting home to the quarterback. So again, you don't want this team to go back to sitting in a cover 2 shell the whole game and just not being able to dictate what happens. I mean, that's part of who Aaron Glenn is. That's what defense, I think, should be and how defensive players want to play. So I don't think the Lions need to change too drastically. But I do think, as you go back and you do the deep dive that Dan Campbell talks about, maybe there are certain situations where Aaron just needs to dial it up a little bit differently.
I mean, there are some positives. I think Jeffrey Okuda's playing pretty well. I mean, how surprised are you that he stepped up? He's almost been the best player on this defense, or maybe you're not surprised?
A little bit. I mean, look, as much as, we all like how Okuda has played, DK Metcalf was right last week and that the Lions have given him a lot of help over top. And so it's not like, Okuda is just one-on-one shutting down opposing receivers. And we saw last week, they matched him up on Metcalf a couple times and Metcalf got the better of that matchup. So that's going to happen. But look, Okuda has been their best cornerback this year. He's sort of retaken that mantle, I think, from Amani as the Lions' number 1 corner. Still can be better. We still need to see some turnovers out of him in that secondary. I don't know if he's quite their best defensive player. Charles Harris is playing pretty well. They've got something in both their rookies, but you're right, Deez, that is one of the few bright spots on that side of the ball.
And you mentioned Malcolm Rodriguez with the rookies. My gosh, I mean, yeah. He has to be on the field. Maybe the guy next to him doesn't, but he has to be on the field.
someone had emailed me and they said, this is what's wrong with the Lions defense. You've got a rookie 6th-round pick starting. I said, the guy's a good player.
Right.
Like, I don't know what you're watching. Like, he deserves to be playing. It's not like he's playing because there are no other options. Like, maybe there aren't many other options, but Malcolm Rodriguez is a really good player, and we all know the size concerns. That's why he fell to the 6th round of the draft. If his body holds up, I think he's going to have a very long and productive career in the NFL.
I want to ask you about the offense, but this kicking situation first. You got to give Brad Holmes some credit for some of these picks and the Rodriguez pick and Amon-Ra and then some. He's done some good things. The jury's still out. I don't think I need to tell you that. You know that better than me, but the kicking situation's a joke. I mean, the evaluating kickers, the one guy they've had, Riley Patterson's killing it in Jacksonville. Like, what, for 2 years now with this kicking situation and going back to Prater, how badly do you think they've handled this thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly reminiscent of 2014 a little bit when they are 13 and 14 after, Hansen retires and you're sort of looking for a solution. And you come to realize they're just, kicking is maybe not as reliable around the league as it's been in Detroit for most of the past couple decades. And look, I thought Austin Seibert was the better kicker than Riley Patterson in training camp. So I can't fault, Holmes for that decision. Neither one of them were great. They both had their misses, but Seibert had a bigger leg. And I know it's not all about that big leg, but he's been good on kickoffs, and that accuracy was not there. They need more of that. It's hurt the Lions. And, this is a situation now where we saw it Tuesday. They brought 4 kickers in for workouts. Didn't get a great performance out of those guys, so they signed someone else that had just been cut by the Bears, Michael Badgley, who is going to be on practice squad to start. But if Seibert can't go, we'll kick this weekend. So I don't know that a Prater is walking through the door like happened in 2014, but at some point here, maybe in the draft come spring, the Lions are going to have to find themselves what they deem to be a reliable kicker.
Yes, I remember the Alex Henry era. Remember that? That was fun. That was fun.
Short-lived.
Yes, it was. All right, I want to ask Dave about the defense. We'll do that coming up next. I want to tell you, though, first about our friends at BetOnline, your number one source for football betting info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, in-depth articles, and analysis in every game you can find at BetOnline. They remain your continued source for all your sports wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport out there, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite games and events. It's simple at betonline.net, including the MLB playoffs coming up, MMA, boxing, and golf. BetOnline, where the game starts. Dave Birkett with us from the Free Press. Lions getting ready to take on the Patriots this week. A reunion of sorts. Matt Patricia, of course. Are you guys going to get to talk to him? Or he's like... And I don't think anybody's talked to him since he's been gone from Detroit, right? It's kind of a weird situation.
Saw him at the owners' meetings, cordial, said hi. I did hop on his, he had a little Zoom teleconference last week. Coordinator of Patriots, every NFL team makes their assistants available, and just got a little tip that he might not be talking this week, so I might want to hop on last week's, and did squeeze a question or two in just about his transition to offensive coordinator. So probably be writing about that here later on today. Talked to Taylor Decker about that a little bit last week too, just kind of working ahead. So I certainly don't need to rehash the Matt Patricia era in Detroit. I don't think anyone really wants to do that. But look, I was surprised, maybe not that they did it, but really that Bill Belichick would go that route and have, Matt Patricia, a defensive guy for most of his career, be the offensive coordinator. And so not totally surprised that, how it's worked out for their offense so far. But hey, I'll tell you this, Matt, in talking to Decker and, I talked to some others about this before, they didn't necessarily think it was as big of a deal as I did that Matt Patricia became defensive coordinator. Taylor said he didn't expect it, but he also didn't think that, it's something that Matt can't do just because he's, as a defensive coordinator, you learn a lot of things, and having played on that side of the ball before.
How about I'm watching the game Sunday, the Green Bay Patriots game, and Tavai is flying around the field. I'm like, what planet am I on? Like, he was playing pretty well, Dave.
Well, I didn't see that. I'll take your word for it for sure. But it's funny, like right when he came here and Bob Quinn was here, it was Patriots West, right?
Oh
And now
yeah,
you look at some of the roster, and it's sort of like Lions East again, right? Some of those
yeah.
guys are back there. Tavai and Jamie Collins, who obviously was here, re-signed with the Patriots for like the fourth time. So a lot of familiar faces, I think, with the coaching staff and the roster.
I'm telling you, he wasn't that bad the other day. I was stunned. It was stunning to me. He was even out there. But look, the Lions' offense, like you said earlier, really has been good. It obviously starts. You got to have quarterback play, and then Jared Goff. I mean, passer rating near 100. How about this? And what do you think's been? Is it just Ben Johnson? What do you think it is?
Well, I think there's a lot at play on that side of the ball too. I mean, look, Ben Johnson deserves a lot of credit for it. You know, he's a bright guy, and he's, I think, calling up some good plays and scheming some good plays, his route combinations, and some of the things that he's doing to help these guys get open. You know, Jared Goff certainly, you don't get this done without the players, and even though they've had a lot of injuries and a lot of guys missing, you know, Jared Goff has played well, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, when he was healthy, has played really well, and that offensive line, no matter who's in there, has played well, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is probably a lot to do with that offensive line, and you know, Brad and the crew building, you know, what they've done up front. You know, these, I think last year the Pro Football Focus, their top 7 offensive lines, 6 of them made the playoffs. Including, you know, the Rams, the Super Bowl champs.
Yeah.
So when you have a really good offensive line, you can do so many things on offense, and that's what the Lions are doing right now.
I mean, anybody can just plug and play, and it's been nice to watch. I know Dan Skipper didn't have a great PFF grade the other day, but it's not like he's getting beat every play. And Evan Brown, wherever you put him, that's a credit to Hank Fraley, and like you said, Brad Holmes too, for kind of identifying some of these bit players, right?
Yeah, and you know, I mean, when they came in and they looked at this roster, and you saw, well, you know, hey, let's give the old regime credit too, right? Bob Quinn drafted Taylor Decker, and he drafted Frank Ragnow, and he drafted Jonah Jackson, and so they looked and they saw 3 pretty good offensive linemen in place, and Vaitai figuring they could move him, and you know what Brad had told me that morning of his first draft was, we want to do this thing like the Rams did, right? The Rams, they just built a monster, and he was talking about the defensive line and how they drafted Robert Quinn, then Michael Brockers, and Aaron Donald, and they just kept stacking one after another, all these really good defensive linemen there that made them just an elite unit up front. And you know, he saw the ability to do that on the offensive line, and so kept those pieces in place, added Penei Sewell to it. You know, at some point, they're probably going to spend another high draft pick on a lineman, and people will say, wow, look, we already got a line. What are we doing that for? Well, that's to keep this thing going for the long term. So, yeah, I think both from a depth standpoint and from an elite talent standpoint in the starting unit, I think the Lions have it done there on the offensive line.
Dave, you knew that T.J. Hawkinson almost had to have a big game this past week with all the guys out, and then Cephas goes down, and he did. I mean, is this now the start, hopefully, of something rolling for 88?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it reminds everyone that he's capable, you know, and both in the organization and outside the NFL, if maybe someone wants to go get him at some point, you know, but I think the way the Lions offense is operated, you know, they've played a lot of 3 wide here the first, 4 weeks of the season. Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be this team's number 1 receiver, you know, at some point here, probably, you know, later on this season, very later on, or next year, you know, Jamison Williams will be right up there with Amon-Ra. So, you know, I don't know that we should expect many more huge days from Hawkinson like this, but he certainly is capable when the Lions are looking for him, and I think reminded everyone that he's one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the NFL.
In terms of, and obviously it's not, you know, it's midweek, so we got some time, but how do you kind of look at this game and some of the guys that could be or could not be available? And obviously with the bye next week, how do you think Dan Campbell and them are going to play it?
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, I hadn't really thought about making a pick yet because of all the injuries. You know, you kind of want to see how it's going to shake out with Swift and St. Brown and even Chark, and you know, see who the Lions have. Look, I think they probably sit DeAndre Swift. You know, if you go back to the way Deuce Staley was talking last week, he said something in his news conference about, well, you know, when we get him back in a couple weeks, and that just told me he's probably coming back after the bye. And last year, Swift missed 4 weeks with a sprained shoulder. That's what he's got now. hey, it makes sense. You give him, this week and next. But I will say this: talking to David Chow, Pro Football Injury Doc, on Twitter. This was years ago. I think he was the one that told me that. I think I'd said something about, well, you got the bye week coming up, so you rest them and you give them that extra week of rest. And he said, that's not always how NFL teams look at it. They think that if you're close and you can play, then you play because then you have that extra week of rest after playing. So I wouldn't rule St. Brown out this week if Chark's foot is feeling better. I think you could see him. So maybe we have more of the Lions offense that we're used to seeing on the field against the Patriots.
Dave, always appreciate it, my friend. How's the jump shot, by the way? Still wet?
Broke. No,
really?
No, I still get out and play once or twice a week. So my old age, I'm probably much better in my head than I am on the court. But I still, it's my one activity to sort of get away from everything that and coaching the girls hoops. And
That's right.
My son's hoops for that matter too. So
love it, Coach Dave Birkett. We love it. All right, man. Great to talk to you.
All right, we'll see you.
There he is, Dave Birkett, with us from the Free Press on a Wednesday edition of Locked on Lions.